The thought is dreaded, but the King's illness is a reality check for the firm. It means there's added impetus to ensure Prince William is match fit for a possible call-up to the top job.
There is a property in Wiltshire that Camilla Parker Bowles owned for decades. She bought it before she married Charles, before the coronation, before the tiara and the title and the seat beside the king at every state occasion. It was her garden, her escape, the one place that predated everything royal and belonged entirely, unconditionally to her. She sold it. No announcement, no lifestyle magazine feature, no carefully worded statement about new chapters or exciting changes. It simply appeared on the market, and then it was gone. When a woman sells the only thing that was hers before all of this started, she is telling you something about where she thinks things are heading. And sources suggest the reason for that tells a story that has been 30 years in the making, involving two people Camilla never fully accounted for. One controls over £1 billion. The other controls something potentially more powerful than money. Act 1. The inheritance nobody talks about. Most people, when they think about what William inherited when Queen Elizabeth died, think about his place in the line of succession, the future of the crown, the weight of expectation. They do not think about the money. They should. The Duchy of Cornwall is one of the oldest and largest private estates in Britain. Tenant farms, holiday cottages, the Isles of Scilly, Dartmoor land rights, and 7 centuries of accumulated commercial investment. In 2025 alone, it generated approximately £30 million in income. The total value of the estate sits at roughly £1.2 billion. All of it passed directly to William the moment Queen Elizabeth died. No committee vote, no consultation, no approval required from Charles or anyone else. And William, sources suggest, understood from the beginning exactly what that meant. The first signal came quietly. No press release, no drama. A woman named Anne, Abel Elliot, simply stopped appearing in the duchy's financial records. Annabel Elliot is Camilla's younger sister. She had worked as an interior designer across duchy properties for nearly 20 years under Charles, earning between £19,000 and £82,000 annually depending on the project. She had become a fixture, part of the fabric of how the estate operated. The moment William took control, she was gone. She was not replaced with a neutral professional hire. William brought in people from his own circle, friends, godparents of his children, people whose loyalty ran exclusively to him. Royal commentators noted the ripple effects immediately, and sources say Princess Anne, watching from her own position inside the family, approved completely. Not because she had anything personal against Annabel Elliot, but because she understood clearly and immediately what William was communicating. He was not managing an inheritance. He was making a statement about the future. Act 2. The Woman in the Archives. There is a room most people will never enter. It sits inside Windsor Castle, and it is called the Royal Archives. No tourists, no film crews, no researchers without specific authorization. It holds the private, unfiltered written record of the British royal family, letters, diaries, internal correspondence, going back generations. What it contains from the 1980s and 1990s, sources suggest, is considerably more specific and considerably more uncomfortable than anything the public record has ever fully captured. The broad outline of those years is well known. The 1992 separation, the Camilla Gate tapes in 1993, Charles's television confession in 1994, Diana's panorama interview in 1995, the divorce, the crash in a Paris tunnel in August 1997. 30 years of documentaries, biographies, and investigative journalism have mapped the public shape of that story. But the archives contain the private shape. Who knew what and when? Who was told? Who facilitated? How Diana's distress was received and managed inside an institution that was simultaneously managing its own reputation and interests. The internal written record of a period the public record only partially illuminates. Princess Anne has access to those materials at a level very few people outside the immediate family possess. Sources suggest she has been reviewing them. Anne has been a member of this family for over 70 years. She watched everything unfold in real time. The affairs, the separation, Diana's increasingly desperate public statements, the divorce, the death. She processed all of it the way she processes everything, privately, professionally, and without public comment. For 30 years, institutional loyalty held. Sources say something shifted in the past several months. Anne allegedly reached a conclusion that the historical record of that period, the complete, specific, unredacted record, deserves to exist, and that the woman currently sitting beside the king at every state occasion has no right to shape how the most painful chapter of Diana's life is remembered. That position, sources say, is not theoretical. It has implications. Act 3. 100 Quiet Moves. Here is what makes this story different from a palace drama. There is no single dramatic confrontation at the center of it, no screaming match, no public statement that draws a line. What sources describe instead is something more methodical and, in many ways, more devastating, because it leaves nothing to reverse and almost nothing to point to directly. After Annabel Elliot, the narrowing continued. Access to crown events, invitations to official royal occasions, proximity to ceremonies where Camilla's wider family had come to expect a presence. All of it quietly withdrawn, without explanation, without announcement, without anything that generates a headline on its own. Each indie. Visual decision deniable. The full picture, sources say, unmistakable. William also began redirecting a portion of Duchy-connected philanthropic resources toward causes Diana had championed during her lifetime. Mental health, homelessness, HIV awareness. The causes the establishment once resisted her championing because they were considered too raw, too political, too emotionally direct for a senior royal. Diana championed them anyway. The institution made her pay for it. Her son now controls the institution, and sources say he is pointing resources toward exactly the places his mother pointed when the palace was working to contain her. Simultaneously, the symbolic architecture is shifting. Royal patronages are being redistributed. Sources suggest Anne has been involved in certain patronage decisions in ways that have quietly redirected high-profile associations away from Camilla and toward the Wales household. In 2025, Charles granted William and Catherine the authority to issue royal warrants, the ability to publicly endorse brands and institutions on behalf of the crown, a privilege historically guarded closely by monarchs. The signal was not subtle. The crown's symbolic weight is being deliberately repositioned toward William and Catherine, away from the current reign, away from everything the current reign includes. Act 4. The arithmetic. Camilla cannot escape. Camilla currently moves through the full infrastructure of a reigning queen consort. Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, Sandringham, Balmoral, every significant private royal property in Britain accessible to her as of right. When Charles dies, that picture changes completely. Sandringham passes to William. Balmoral passes to William. Buckingham Palace becomes William and Catherine's primary official residence. The properties Camilla currently moves through, as a matter of course, become properties she can only access at William's invitation. Sources suggest her likely personal inheritance will consist of Clarence House, valued at approximately £72 million, and Highgrove at around £39 million, significant by any ordinary measure, completely inadequate as a substitute for the position she currently holds. She would move from queen consort, with the full institutional weight of the monarchy behind her, to a private citizen with a dowager title, living in 2 houses at the discretion of a man who grew up watching what she did to his mother. Sources say Camilla understands that arithmetic very clearly. And the sale of Ray Mill House, her Wiltshire retreat, the garden she publicly described as her best therapy, the only property that predated all of this, suggests something about how clearly she is thinking through what comes next. People do not sell their personal sanctuaries without reason. They do not part with the one place that belonged to them before everything else started unless something has shifted fundamentally in how they see their own future. Act 5. The King Who Cannot Fight This. The person who could theoretically stop all of this is Charles. He is still king. The formal authority still rests with him, and sources describe a phone call he made to Anne in February of this year, one of the most difficult conversations between the 2 siblings in decades. Not angry, not confrontational, quiet, pained. A man who understood exactly what his sister was doing and exactly why, and found himself unable to argue against it. The call lasted 40 minutes. Nothing was resolved. To protect Camilla, Charles would need to tell William to restore the access and privileges William deliberately removed. William would not comply, and Charles knows it. He would need to tell Anne to stop whatever she is doing with the archives. Anne would not comply, and Charles knows that too. He would need to position himself publicly against both his heir and his sister, simultaneously, in defense of the woman that millions of people still associate with his first wife's suffering. And then there is the dimension that sources describe as the most painful of all. Charles knows why they feel what they feel. Because he was there. Because he was the cause of it. He is the man who conducted the affair that Diana described in terms of profound personal devastation. He is the reason that grief exists in this family. In William, in Anne, in the broader public that mourned Diana and never entirely forgave the circumstances of her marriage. How do you argue against your son's grief over his mother when you are the reason that grief exists? Sources say Charles cannot make that argument, because somewhere, in some part of himself he cannot fully suppress, he does not believe it either. He allegedly expressed, to a senior aide during this period, not anger at William and not frustration with Anne, understanding. It would be easy to frame this as revenge. William and Anne dismantling everything Camilla built, piece by piece, because of what she contributed to Diana's suffering. But sources suggest the second version of this story is closer to the truth, and it is more considered and more permanent than revenge. Revenge looks like a single dramatic moment, a public humiliation, a stripping away. That is not what sources describe. What they describe is an institution being slowly and deliberately rebuilt around a different set of values. The emotional intelligence Diana was told was inappropriate for a senior royal. The genuine human connection she was told was beneath royal dignity. The public accountability she was told was dangerous. All of it allegedly being built into the architecture of the monarchy William is constructing. Diana walked through active minefields in Angola to make a political point about weapons killing civilians. She sat with AIDS patients when the establishment still treated the disease as shameful. She looked homeless people in the eye and treated them as fully human when the institution she belonged to was actively working to contain her instincts. She was right. The institution was wrong. William watched his mother be right while the palace punished her for it. Now he runs the palace. Camilla won the battle 30 years ago. She got Charles, she got the title, she got the seat beside the king and the tiara that once appeared on British banknotes. But sources suggest the war was never about Charles. It was about Diana, about what she represented, about whether the institution she tried to change would eventually become something worthy of what she paid to try to change it. That institution, sources say, is being built now. And the woman who sold her garden without announcement, who watches her family's access to the crown narrow quietly week by week, who will one day live in 2 houses at William's invitation, sources suggest she is beginning to understand what she is watching. She cannot argue against a legacy. She cannot litigate grief. She cannot outmaneuver a son who spent 28 years deciding in silence what to do about his mother. Diana never got to see this, but it is happening. So, what do you think? Is this justice, legacy, or something that crosses a line even with everything Camilla did? And do you think Charles will ever find a way to push back, or is his silence the answer? Leave your thoughts in the comments. This is one of the most layered stories inside the royal family right now, and I want to know exactly where you stand. Subscribe if you're new here. This story is still developing. The archives, the estate, the patronages, and you'll want the full picture as each piece lands.